See, this is my problem here because it's not necessarily that we don't know what a morally gray character is. Because I know what a morally gray character is. I know a lot of people who don't like RHYSAND know what a morally gray character is. The problem is that RHYSAND would be an incredibly morally gray character. He would be incredible at it. I was actually vibing like hell with him during ACOTAR 1. He wasn't my type. I wouldn't have... He's not my fae man of choice, but I vibed with him pre-Akamath, specifically because he was an asshole and he was doing good shit, but like, he was an asshole. He was morally gray. So by the time we get to A Court of Mist and Fury and we have his whole chapter 54, this is why I'm not a douchebag speech, it undercuts a lot of that moral grayness because he was never morally gray to begin with. He was always a good guy. He was a good guy pretending to be a bad guy. That doesn't mean that he's morally gray. Those are two different things. I'm going to use a Game of Thrones example here again. Tyrion Lannister is morally gray. He does things for his own ends. He does objectively terrible things that cannot be excused. The narrative doesn't try to excuse him. We're free to develop our own opinions about him and decide whether we think that he is worth the trouble or not. This character is morally gray. Melisandre, she is so focused on saving the world and serving her god and trying to be the best R'hllor priestess she could possibly be, that she is eventually driven to burn a child alive. Which, oh my god, fuck her for that. Shireen was my favorite. But either way, Melisandre is morally gray in the sense that she's doing good. She's trying to do good, but ends up doing bad. And even at the end of her story arc in the show, where like she burns everybody up and then she burns herself to a crisp, it doesn't wash away her sins. It doesn't burn away her sins, so to speak. This character is morally gray. This is a man who wants nothing more than to save his country, to save his people, to save his entire species, basically. And he is eventually corrupted to the point where he like tries to steal a ring off of a short man who is so scared of him that he's running away from him. And while his actions are made up for in the fact that he is ultimately killed by the orcs that come to take the ring, he spends his final moments defending the other hobbits. This is probably like a lighter gray version of moral grayness in the sense that he's meant to speak about the fallibility of man, but also men are fallible. This is truth in literature, and it speaks to how normal people are more like Boromir than they are like Aragorn. And even though The Lord of the Rings does have a very strong sense of morality and what is right, what is wrong, Boromir kind of dances on that periphery, and most of us sympathize with him, or at least most of us who are human and have souls sympathize with him and empathize with him. Tolkien, I think, also leaves it open enough that we can decide whether we're not about him anymore or not. That doesn't happen with RHYSAND. RHYSAND, once we get the chapter 54, this is why I'm not a douchebag speech, we're not allowed really to question him anymore. And ACOTAR, this isn't really an issue because he wasn't like, he did a couple of like, shitty things in ACOTAR, and the narrative is like, Amryn, like the narrative has Amryn go like, hey, like you did a bad thing, like you need to make up for this, like it was right, but it also really hurt people. You need to make that right. Post Solstice, though, post A Court of Frost and Starlight, this man can do no wrong, and according to the narrative, and this is why I cannot stand him. It has very little to do with his actions. Like his actions, if RHYSAND was designed to continue to be a morally gray bitch, to be like that guy who will do shitty things in the sense of the greater good, instead of the narrative bending over backwards to be like, oh no, this was right, this was correct, this was good, then I would have a lot less of a problem with him, and I would probably vibe with him even more than like Cassian or someone, even though both him and Cassian are kind of on my shit list right now. I'm not like that mad, but I'm a little mad. But it is kind of annoying that like the narrative just doesn't let us decide how we feel about certain characters. It just kind of points us in the direction like RHYSAND is always right, RHYSAND is always right. And that's the part that sucks about him, and that's what makes him not morally gray. It's not his actions, it's the way the narrative frames them.